Mm, 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 mm. अपन सब भाई मैं बाबा
Baba, no fucks. Baba is least amount of effort.
तुम लोग को ये सुनाई दे रहा है पीछे मैंने फायरप्लेस का साउंड बैकग्राउंड साउंड रखा है कैसे लग रहा है ये
Very
भाई
nice. Very nice.
Also, for all the confused people watching this on 3rd of Jan wondering इसका Christmas tree क्यों चालू है is because this has been a pre-planned and pre-shot episode shot on the 20th of December. अभी बोलो अपनी commitment है कि नहीं भाई
You're in
इसी बात
question.
पे है
It'll be really
इसी
sad
बात
if
पे
this upload is late.
yeah this better not be late. But before anything, Happy New Year to all you guys. Hope you had a fantastic New Year. It's very
One
funny
sec.
to
I
wish
hope
somebody.
we had a fantastic New Year.
Yeah, exactly. It's really funny to wish
I hope
on
we
the
have.
20th. Yeah. What were your New Year plans and why was it Goa?
Shit.
My New Year
my
plans were to stay at home, and then I stayed at home. So I think I had a great New Year plan.
It's crazy how Baba is saying this for 2 weeks later, right now, and that's actually going to
Yeah.
come true.
Yes,
100%.
It's insane.
I'm the only one who can predict my own New Year.
नहीं और मैं भी गोवा जा रहा हूँ वैसे तो टेक्निकली
I have a
मैं
feeling.
सोच रहा है स्कॉटलैंड आयरलैंड टाइप
नहीं तू सोच रहा है आदर जब ये आएगा तभी तू आ
आदर,
चुका होगा
तेरे पास कपड़े नहीं है स्कॉटलैंड के, तू रहने दे प्लीज.
डूड मैं माइनस के लिए नहीं नाउ आई इक्विप माय सेल्फ ना नाउ आई गॉट एवरीथिंग नाउ मेरा ये देख
तू
ये सब लेके ट्रैवल करेगा मैं ये देख मेरा
प्लीज
स्पेस हीटर
Aadar, you can't carry this in Scotland. No, it needs electricity. Also, you currently still are dressed
देखो
like
क्या लगता है हाउ आर स्कॉटिश पीपल लिविंग विदाउट
they are
इलेक्ट्रिसिटी
Scottish. Also,
सब
Aadar,
लोग
you
श्रेक घूम
still,
रहे हैं क्या उधर
Aadar, you don't have the clothes. You still look like an extra in Heather.
That's because I am liking this Kashmiri vibe.
नो और हम लोग फुल वाइब में है बिकॉज आई नो यू गाइस हैव बीन आस्किंग अस टू डू अ घोस्ट स्टोरीज एपिसोड फॉर क्वाइट सम टाइम
अरे यार
और हमेशा हम लोग का रह जाता था सो दिस टाइम वी डिसाइडेड दैट लेट्स बिगिन द न्यू ईयर विद an episode you guys all wanted so that's why ghost stories.
Also, the way Varun revealed himself, now the first thing you saw was Christmas lights. This is going to be a Christmas episode.
What an idiot.
But that's a good thing, right? Christmas के साथ ghost stories एक मजे वाला vibe है. मेरे को
I
तो
thought
full
it
mood
was-
आ रहा है अभी.
I thought it was Halloween.
अभी किधर भी ghost stories हर जगह पे चलता है.
Yeah, any time is a good time if you are a fan of horror.
Yeah, if you're a fan of horror, clearly. So Baba, get ready to piss your pants and let's begin the episode in 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Internet Set. So, show we did. I'm Mr. New Year, facet and personal stories, and we talk about them. Happy New Year! Welcome to 2023, and let's begin this year with some spooky tales from four guys who just did a Google search right before.
Hey,
No,
come on.
for yourself.
We
नहीं
did.
नहीं
we
नहीं
did.
मैं
एक
पेज
मिनट
7 पे हूँ I'm at least on page
एक
7.
मिनट ये मेरा और कौतुक का टॉन्ट था दूसरे लोग के लिए.
दूसरे लोग के लिए मैं तो लेके आया हूँ भाई. I had two
मैं लेके आया
options.
था but I realized that it's not long enough and it doesn't reach the satisfying
अगर
conclusion that the second one
अभी
does.
सर्च किया, झूठ मत बोल.
नहीं पहले वाला था मेरे पास पहले मेरे पास दो थे
क्योंकि
दो
मैं
थे
ये
और
कर
एक
चुका
I
हूँ.
realized we've already spoken about.
मैं 74 एपिसोड्स के लिए सेम चीज करता है, ठीक है, कर चुका हूँ. अभी मैं
That's why you're compensating by editing.
The other thing I was going to say was, guys, if you are saying something and that you want to cut or whatever, there's a huge chance that you might have to do this, okay, on video.
Because you're not listening to the audio.
Yeah.
I'm just saying,
Oh.
it's a chance. Okay, so if I don't acknowledge a cut, just do this, then I'll turn on the mute. See, I don't want to ruin the vibe of people who are enjoying this episode.
Man,
So,
for
But if you're not going to listen to our stories, then what? You're just going to stare at the screen.
no, I'll make notes, na.
On what? If you can't hear anything.
When you do this, I'll
Kindle
write
scribe.
time.
Okay, so तू
Hmm.
तू एक एडिट मशीन है फिलहाल. ठीक है, चल. So we'll get to that. Kautuk, as usual, शुरू करते हैं तेरे अल्फाजों से ये एपिसोड.
very nice, very nice. Okay. All right. Okay. So our first ghost story, okay, comes to us from India. Okay, it comes to us very specifically from Bengal. And here's what this story is. Now, I'll first tell you the story, and then I'll tell you about the ghost and a little bit about what the horror is really about. So, our story begins with a woman called Moni. Moni has just gotten married, and life is going well for her. She likes her husband, has moved into the family of the husband. So she lives with her in laws. And there is only one thing that she finds incredibly odd. And the thing is this, that her mother in law cannot stand torn clothes. If there's a single torn cloth or a single article of clothing which is torn in the house, the mother in law instantly gives it away. Now, this has struck Moni as odd, but it becomes particularly bothering when the mother in law does this one particular thing. So, Moni had been gifted a very beautiful sari by her husband on her anniversary. She really loves this sari and it fits her well. It's her favorite color. She really enjoys it. But she was ironing the sari one day and the iron just remained on a spot for too long and a small tear appeared in the sari. Now, as soon as the mother-in-law saw this, she immediately said that we have to give this sari away. Now, Moni protested. She tried to talk her mother-in-law out of this, but her mother-in-law would not relent. So tearfully, Moni had to witness the sari being given away. Now, here's what happened. The mother-in-law had called for someone to take these torn clothes away. And Moni finally saw this person. And this person left a chill running down Moni's spine. Because at the door on one particular day, she sees this dark, thin figure. It's a figure of a woman, and she's got her face in a veil. Like there's a piece of cloth that's covering her face. She can't see this person's face, but just seeing her standing in the courtyard seems very, very off-putting. And then she sees her mother-in-law give the sari to this extremely creepy figure. Moni is extremely saddened by this, and the sari is gone. However, a few days later, Moni spots this same figure at a little distance from their house. There was a pond. And in the evening, Moni sees this figure at the pond. And she is washing clothes. And amongst that pile of clothes is Moni's sari. Now, it's extremely upsetting to her, but she doesn't think much of it. What she realizes is that every single time a piece of clothing in the house gets torn, the mother-in-law gives it to this creepy woman. So, to avoid this, Moni starts becoming extra cautious with her clothes. She starts maintaining them really well, washing them herself, ironing it so that she makes sure that the iron never stays on a spot to tear it. She keeps her clothes immaculately. Now, years go by and she has a son. The son's name is Rabin. And Rabin grows up to be a fine young boy, and he's been taught by his mother that he has to keep his clothes extremely well. If there is a single torn cloth, his mother will also cast it aside. And she's very particular about this, and which is why Rabin grows up to be a boy who's extremely careful about his clothes. But one day, Rabin goes to school and he gets into a fight. Now, in this fight, it's a scuffle amongst boys. And as the scuffle ensues, the boy he's fighting with tears a little bit of his red and white checked t-shirt. Now, when this tear happens, Rabin sees it and instantly he's a little uh, he's a little upset because he knows that his mother is going to be even more upset. So he asks his friend, he's like, "What can I do to hide this tear?" So his friend resourcefully takes out a safety pin and he says, "Just patch it up right now. We'll figure out what to do." So he patches up the tear and he goes home. The mother doesn't notice the tear that day. And Rabin is now wondering what he's going to do afterwards. How is he going to convince his mother or pacify his mother when she notices the tear? However, that very evening, while he's in his room studying, completing his homework, he hears a knock on the door. He sees his mother open the door. And then he sees his mother getting into a verbal argument. Her voice has raised and she's yelling at somebody. He looks through the window and he sees that outside in the courtyard is this dark, thin figure with a veil over her face. Now, what he hears is basically this: the woman had come there asking for torn clothes, and his mother had turned her away, saying that there are no torn clothes in this house. Get away from here. The woman had slowly turned around and shuffled away from the house. That night, Rabin could not sleep easily, and neither could his mother. Moni, too, is tossing and turning. She's very uneasy by this appearance of this creepy woman so many years later. The next day, Rabin goes to school. Moni still has not, her heart is still not settled. There's something wrong about this day. Rabin goes to school, and while he's at school, his mind is wandering. He looks out the window and he sees that outside the schoolyard, there is that same dark, thin figure with a veil over her face. She seems to be looking straight at him. He gets out of school and very cautiously looks around. He sees that there's nobody there. And so he starts making his way back home. But throughout the way back home, he can always feel that there's someone following him. He keeps turning around, keeps looking, keeps turning around, keeps looking, and there's no one there. Finally, he turns around and looks back, and the woman is right in front of him. It's the same dark, thin figure, but this time there is no veil. Back at home, Moni is getting more and more anxious. Her son was supposed to be back home a long time ago. She's worried. She starts linking this boy's lateness to the person who had come to the house a day before. Eventually, she can't take it anymore and she gets out of the house and starts looking for Rabin. She goes everywhere. Soon, the sun dips below the horizon. It's dark now. In this darkness, with a slight moon casting a little bit of light onto the land, she finally makes her way to the pond. And at the pond, she sees a silhouetted figure, lonely, alone at the water's edge. She can hear this gentle splashing sound, the splashing of clothes being dunked in water. And as she sees this thin, dark figure with a veil over her face, she looks down to her skeletal fingers, and her skeletal fingers are gripping a red and white checked t-shirt. So this is a story that comes to us from a book called The Book of Indian Ghosts. It's by Rik Sundar Banerjee. And this particular ghost is called the Kanni Pisachi. Okay, and it's a ghost from Bengal. Now, the thing about this ghost, okay, that's very incredibly specific, is that you will find this ghost near a water body. She's always washing clothes in the evening, and she always kills people who are wearing torn clothes.
Fuck.
So it's a very specific type of ghost. if you ask me. And like this is the kind of ghost story, right? That tells you like what ghost stories were partly meant for, right? They were partly meant as morality stories.
Yeah. बहुत
So
बच्चे
फटा कपड़ा
झगड़ा
नहीं
करके
करना चाहिए.
कपड़े फाड़ के आ
हाँ.
रहे.
yeah,
ब्रो अगर
It's
रफू
like
वाला
that
है आजू
logic
बाजू
now.
तो
yeah.
अगर रफू
हाँ
वाला
नहीं,
है
लेकिन
बाजू.
वो फटा हुआ कपड़ा उसने ठीक तो किया था ना, फिर भी वो पीछे पड़ी. सो इट्स लाइक इवन इफ यू आर नॉट डूइंग अ गुड जॉब ऑन द पैच अप, it's it's just as dangerous. You need to go to a good tailor. But the little hole in the cloth is where the ghost attacks you. It's like वो जो कंबल में तुम्हारा एक टांग ऐसे बाहर रहता है ना, you feel the कंबल पूरा उड़ा होगा, तो फिर the ghost can't get you.
The Karni
But
Pisachi.
Kautuk, what is this book?
It's a book called The Book of Indian Ghosts by Rick Sundar Banerjee. He's
So this comes from folklore, or this is his
no, so
own?
he has basically compiled a bunch. So he's been researching about ghosts, and he's compiled a bunch of these folk tales, ghost stories. There's a lot of like specific creatures and like for example, this Kanni Pisachi is a very specific type of ghost, right? So he's compiled all of these. It's a whole host of different Indian ghosts from all across. So it's worth checking out in case you're interested in this kind of thing.
Nice.
Hmm.
बाबा कुछ भी सुना?
सब सुना, पूरा का पूरा सुना मैं ghost story.
तेरा कपड़ा
Really?
फटा हुआ होता है, तेरे को संभाल के रहना पड़ेगा. वाह.
हाँ.
Also, मेरा गांड फटा है. Does the ghost attack गांड फटो?
नहीं.
That's
Hmm.
वो तो कन्नी पिसाजी छोड़ देगी तेरे को. But maybe the next one who I'm talking about might not leave you. So this story I found on Reddit also comes from India, namely Mandava, which is a small village in Rajasthan.
No,
Which,
comic
he's a
in Delhi.
comedian in Delhi.
Yeah.
I thought.
Good. Mandava, because I also shot the show that I did, Kaun Banegi Shikar, which was shot in Mandava. So the story is basically of this British or American journalist, and his theme was always to find like very different and interesting stories from across the world. So he had heard from a couple of his colleagues about this specific fortune teller that comes from India, and the story sort of stayed with him. So on his trip to India, he decided to call his friends, figure out who this person is, and try and go and see this woman in person, this prophetess, so to speak. So she is in Mandava, and you know how basically Mandava is pretty much cut off from. There's no like bustling town around it, on which they're all like small villages that come together. The highlight is like you'll have that market that is set up all day long, right? So in that market, this woman, it's her, the last stall is hers, and it's basically her ek chatai vatai laga ke people come to her and she tells them about their future. Now a lot of people believe in that, and they've gone across the world to tell it to other people about how her prediction came true. And at the same time, a lot of people go back with absolutely no new information, nothing, and she gives them their money back also, because their aura was a little off. She was not able to read their future or whatever. So many a times she's like, you can go and come back. Maybe then it has worked many a times. So on one end, you have people who firmly believe, but once something like that happens, there is also a whole bunch of people who are like, no, she's a fraud. This is a fake. She'll manipulate you and ask you questions and then tell you, and you will start making the connection in your head, whatever. So this guy wanted to see and meet her in person. So he decides to go meet her at the end of her day. So she's the last customer. So he goes and so he describes how this woman is, right? She has a little bakra, she's there. She's completely bald, like her head is shaved, except there's one braid of hair that comes like that from her face till here. She's got those self-made sort of tattoos that are there, frail, and she'll sit down, she'll look at you, and then she'll tell you about your future. So he said the way he saw for the first time and the way she behaved and sat seemed very like choreographed. You know that this is somebody who does this on a daily basis. So now she's found a rhythm in which to do it. She sits down, looks up, looks at him, and realizes, oh, obviously white person. So she's like, American, and he's like, yes. So she's like, you want, and broken English, because she's had so many people come across the years that she's also managed to pick up a little bit of broken English. So she's like, do you want to know your future? And he's like, no, I just came to meet you, ask you a few questions if it's not too much of a trouble, and I will pay you what you normally charge. In fact, I'm happy to pay double of that. I just want to interview you and ask you about how you got to where you are right now. She just keeps staring at him, and then she touches her braid and says, it's actually your past that I'm more interested in. So this guy suddenly, gets a little bit of a jhatka that why is she talking about the past? He's like, listen, whatever's happened in the past has no bearing on what will happen in the future. So I don't want to know any of this. I just want to ask you a few questions. So she's a little hesitant. She's looking at him, looking back. So he then straight takes out dollars because he's like, the one thing that will convince anybody is money, right? So he puts the dollars in front. She takes the money, she keeps it in. So she's like, okay, ask me what you want. So he's like, are you married? And she's like, I was. So he's like, what happened? Like, my husband died. So he's like, how did he die? She's like, he jumped off this roof and fell face first on these rocks, and that's how he died. So he's like, okay, do you have any kids? She's like, yes, I have two kids, and I love them to death, and I will do anything to protect them. And yeah, they are with me. I take care of them. So he's like, okay, can you tell me a little bit more about your husband? She's like, what happened was about 6, 8 years ago. One morning he wakes up and he tells her that he's going to some neighboring town to start getting a job or work and get those daily wage sort of situations. And he goes and disappears for 3 months. No call, nothing, no communication at all. But 3.5 months later, he comes back home, and this time he just looks a shadow of himself. He's half his weight. He his hair is all in an absolute dizzy. His body is hot. He's paranoid. He's anxious. He is always suspecting of people. And he can't seem to distinguish reality. He can't distinguish what is happening in his head vis-a-vis what is actually happening in front of him at that point. And he gets overtly paranoid. She still takes care of him. One morning, she's making the bed, and under the pillow she finds like a big, like that desi knife that comes. So she looks at that knife and she's like, wait, my kids are not safe, right? Who's to tell what he'll do tomorrow? So she takes the kids, packs them off to the grandmother's house, and she still continues to take care of her husband, who's getting worse day by day. He's hit her, he yells, he starts saying random gibberish, he's walking around, people saying I'm going mad, stuff like that. One day jumps off, dies. Now, what happens is that the townsfolk, because in the small village, they can't believe that this guy has jumped and killed himself. So they're like, she must have definitely done something for him to take that step. So they drag her out of the house, get her to the middle of the village square, all the while beating her, kicking her, calling her names. And then she's like, they kept beating me, calling me names and all of that. And then suddenly, after doing a lot of those things, they just stopped and left me. So he's like, how did they just stop and they just leave? She's like, because at one point they started shaving my hair and they were able to shave off everything except this. And she's like, I don't even know how this happened or how did my hair become in this way. But they tried everything. They tried to cut it, they tried to burn it, but nothing would happen to it. So after a point, their rage and anger just turned into fear because they're like, what is going on? So they just left me. And after that, her, like people's perception of her and what she is and all of that is very different. A lot of people think she's not mentally stable. A lot of people think she's a witch. A lot of those things kept happening. And she's like, the next morning onwards, I could just hear stuff. I could hear stuff all around. And I couldn't make sense of what is going on. Like, I'm trying to sleep, but I'm hearing things. I wake up in the morning, I'm hearing things. One day I realized that as soon as I passed by somebody, I heard. And then after a point, she sort of tried to put like two and two together and realized that she was hearing about certain people's future almost when she was passing them. And then obviously after 6 months or a year, she's like, then I started realizing that this is the power that I've suddenly been given. So I was first, telling people I know, then the word spread, then people from neighboring villages came in. Slowly it became a thing. So I'm like, why not charge for it? So now I charge for it and I have this ability. I'm able to read into people's aura and their future. And that's what it is. So they're like, okay, what about your kids? She's like, for some reason, I've still not heard anything about their future. I tried many a times, because I want to make sure that they're safe and they're always okay, but I've never heard anything. So he's like, okay. And then she's like, okay, now I can hear something about you. Do you want me to tell you? So he's like, no, I'm fine. I don't want to know anything. I'm just going to continue this conversation tomorrow. And the whole time that she's asking, she's like sort of looking up like that, not making proper eye contact, but just like slyly just looking up. And even though he had said no, she just says words like, there's going to be sadness, despair, shock, some few words like that. So it just, he doesn't know whether she's telling that to him or what is she actually hinting at. He fucks off from there, goes to his room, is trying to sleep at night. Couple of hours later, massive commotion again. 3 hours later or so, massive commotion. And because it's a small village, everything is close by. He also sort of comes out to see what is going on. And he sees like this big crowd, people yelling, screaming, this woman wailing loudly. So he tries to go get a better look and realizes that it's the same prophetess who's being dragged by people again. So he's like, wait, I just met her. I was just talking to her. She seemed like a normal woman. What's going on? So he tries to get in, but people sort of push him back, saying that, dude, what the fuck? Who are you? You're nothing. Don't interfere in our this. But he still tries to talk to them and understand what happened exactly. Why are they doing this to her? And then somebody tells him that she just smothered and killed both her kids in their sleep. And one neighbor, like a neighbor who went to get something, saw her um, like literally putting a pillow over their face and smothering her kids to death. And so now they've gotten her to the middle, they've tied her up, they're hitting her, and they're literally, I mean, they're going to kill her basically. So this journalist still, he wanted to help her in some way. So he manages to come through the crowd. As soon as she sees him, her eyes light up. And in her broken English, she's still telling him that, please save me, because if you don't, these people are going to kill me. They'll burn me alive. They will kill me. And please help me. And he's like, I want to, but they're telling me that you've killed your kids. Did you do that? So she keeps saying, no, 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 I didn't. You don't understand. I didn't. So he's like, okay, then what's the truth? Tell me right now, only then I can help you. So she looks up and she's like, I did it. So he's taken aback. He's like, what do you mean? She's like, I did it is because for the first time in my life, I heard about their future. And I know what they were going to become in the future. And I wouldn't wish that upon anybody. I know what they're going to do to people. And I couldn't let those people go through. And after they do what they do to those people, something worse is going to happen to them. And she's like, the only way I saw that I could get out of this, I would to help them was to kill them right now, so they don't have to. At least they went in their sleep. And this guy is just shocked. He just goes back. He doesn't know what to do. The villagers overpower him, throw him out, and set her on fire straight. So so she's burning like on the stick, completely tied up, screaming. Uh, our journalist doesn't know what to do. He just sits there in shock. And after the body burns for some time, people start going back because it's done. Like you can't undo this process. Everybody is left, but he just can't get himself to go. He's just sitting there wondering what is going on. Like, how could this happen? And all of what he has witnessed, what he had heard about for so many years, and then finally, when he got a chance to meet, this has happened. After a point, the body, everything is completely burned. There is only a skeleton, but with the hair still, with the hair still there. And yeah, he literally he saw that, and I mean, he was convinced there was something there. Was it a demon, something that passed, something maybe that came through her husband? That the husband was infected by this first. I mean, infected, not like it was a virus, but whatever. The husband was the first vessel from which it came to her. And yeah, that was about the prophetess of Mandawa.
The paradox of this is that if you could see what they were going to do and then you smothered them, then why didn't you see yourself smothering them?
Or
Yeah.
why didn't you just see your own future?
Yeah.
And you're like, fuck, I am
my
going to
question
predict,
is,
I'm going to kill my kids, I'll kill myself
Hmm.
first.
no, my question is, what was the future of the child that she saw?
Mass murderers.
Didn't mention. They must be, na?
Yeah.
They must have been, they turn
It's
into horrible people. They must
yeah.
be serial killers. They could be fucking anything.
It's the briefcase from Pulp Fiction. It's better you don't know what's
Yeah,
in there.
yeah. And I think in
That's what makes a
general,
good story.
and especially a good horror story. Yeah, agreed.
No, and
Agreed.
also if you think about it, when he was leaving her, she had said, "You are going to now feel sadness, shock."
Hmm.
Like in a way that this could also be
Foreshadowing.
interpreted
मेरे को
as.
मेरे को एक पॉइंट पे लगा कि स्केलेट वो अकेला होएगा और स्केलेटन बाद में ऐसे उसके तरफ देखेगा और बोलेगा कि क्या होने वाला है उसके फ्यूचर में.
अब बोला मेरे को नहीं जानना है यार फ्यूचर के बारे में, क्यों नहीं तो सुन के रहेगा. So yeah.
I would be tempted to steal the, like, if the hair was still there. First of all, how is the hair
No,
attached to a skull?
That's a great point, medically speaking.
I will take that up with the Reddit thread on which I found this, bro. Because
It
it's
would fall to the
maybe
ground.
it's not hair. Maybe it's a symbiotic entity
Yeah,
that
demon tech.
it demon tech. Yeah, that it needs a host body to do what it has to. How do you know that once this guy left, the hair didn't just attach itself and fuck off somewhere
जैसे
and
हाँ
join
सांप की
into?
तरह कहीं और जा रहा है.
हाँ, वो भी हो सकता है. क्यों नहीं? वेनम पकड़ ले भाई, वेनम. बेसिकली
I
वेनम लेकिन राजस्थान.
I
Also, why did she grow her hair back? Like, or was it like, okay, this is business now, so I should keep
Yeah,
shaving my head,
yeah.
except
In
for
fact,
that part.
in fact, like if you're in that line of business, you have to look the part.
या अभी सडनली तेरे पास सब ऐसे, अभी तू इमेजिन कर, यू आर कंप्लीटली क्लीन शेवन ऑन द हेड और एक ऐसा ब्रेड तेरे सर से निकल रहा है, तो वाइब है ना
हाँ,
कुछ.
Vibe तो
हाँ.
है.
हाँ कि भाई तू बता चल मुझे
Avatar.
फ्यूचर के बारे में.
I have a 45-second story.
हाँ.
बोल दे बाबा.
Nice.
So, in the University College London, one of the founders and scholars is an 18th century philosopher called Jeremy Bentham.
Hmm.
Okay. Kautuk, you want to say where we mentioned this gentleman's name before?
Yeah, Jeremy Bentham was the guy. We mentioned him in the Jails
Yeah.
podcast. He was the guy who came up with the panopticon. He's a philosopher, thinker.
And
Interesting.
he was doing the case study on the inmates, right?
Yeah. And he's not just a thinker, he's also an overthinker, because this guy, he was a founder of this University College London, and he died in 1832. Okay.
Hmm.
But this guy, I think I've sort of even shown his photograph on the podcast because you had asked me to, Kautuk, I think. But this guy still apparently attends council meetings in college. And that's why his skeleton is in the halls of UCL, right? Still attends, and to a point where we remember that image of him sitting in the thing where it's his clothes with straw and it's his skeleton. And in 2013 there was a recorded occasion in the meeting where in the notes it says about him, Jeremy Bentham, present but not voting.
मतलब यूके में लेबर की इतनी कमी है कि भूतों से हम लोग बोल रहे सर आप आओ प्लीज. हमारे
No.
पास फैकल्टी नहीं है.
I like this. Like this is, by the way, he wrote this in his will. Like, so when he wrote his will, he said that this is what I want you to do with my body, and he gave them a specific, like, seat me in a chair like I'm thinking. Like, he made this whole very detailed, granular will about what to do with his dead body. And he did this for fun because he was like a rationalist, critical thinker, and he was like, I don't believe in any of this. Give my body for dissection. Let them use it for science, and then for fun do this. So which is why his body is still preserved, and it's not as spooky, but it's a fun, it's a rationalist version of a ghost story.
So they're just assuming, or they've actually seen this happen because the body has been preserved in the university
No, they did it as a joke. Like
as a joke.
if
Yeah.
you see that sentence, it says he's present but he's not voting.
Hmm.
That's funny.
पर ऐसे कुछ मैं भी करना चाहूंगा ब्रो.
Yeah, exactly, dude.
थोड़ा साइंस को दे दो, मेरे आंख इधर दे दो, इसको पेट उधर दे दो, दिमाग इधर दे दो.
I think organ donation, for sure.
Should be a
It's
हाँ, सब ले
extremely-
लो ब्रो.
Yeah. The only
सब ले
thing
लो.
that you have
Brain.
to remember, the only thing that you have to remember is that it's extremely cruel and mean on the family.
Hmm.
That's something that you have to remember, because this means that you have to sort of like your body has to be given to things. So
हाँ, तो अभी अगर आग दे दिया तो मैं चश्मा लगाने बोल दूंगा कि चश्मा पहना दे. अगर
Yeah, but they
कोई
still
हार्ट
have
के
to-
बोलूंगा
Go
जैकेट
coins.
जैकेट
Yeah, go Greek on it ना.
जैकेट
पूरा
दे
ऐसा
दे.
coins वॉइन्स डालना.
हाँ,
Okay,
तेरे पास है कुछ?
Speaking of, so there's this story from Houston, and this is about, and as ghost stories go, we've seen so many with dolls. Now, whenever you mention a doll, what kind of a doll do you assume? Like typical Hollywood, those
Annabelle.
old, you assume a Victorian doll with that skirt,
Tatya
with
Vinsu.
the frock,
ऐसे वो पिगटेल.
pigtails. So this story is about a Disney doll, a nice Elsa doll from Frozen. So not your typical haunted doll story. So in 2013, this family for Christmas gets their daughter an Elsa doll, and it sings lines from the movie, like "Let It Go" ka first two lines gaati, "Let it go, let it go." ऐसे उसका एक necklace है, you press the necklace, and the doll sings and says other lines from the movie. Now they have the doll. After a couple of years, the doll starts saying the same lines in Spanish and then switches to English. So it's very sporadic. And they open the doll up from the back. They're like, "Kuch ho gaya hoga." There's no button to change this setting. There's no such thing that exists for that to happen. And it keeps constantly switching between the two. They have this doll for 6 years. And the doll, without being touched at this point, now starts saying the lines, sometimes in Spanish, sometimes in English, to the point where it's scary now. And they've not changed the battery in 6 years. So these guys start panicking. And they're like, nahi, I want to get rid of it. तो ये लोग उठा के इसको कचरे में फेंक देते. And lo and behold, they throw it away. They decide to go on a vacation. They come back from the vacation, and the doll is in the living room का chest. There's a chest of drawers. वहाँ पे doll बैठी हुई. It's like, this is fucked up. And they ask the children, "Did you guys go to the trash and take the doll out?" And the doll is not dirty. कचरे में फेंका था, doll is not dirty. Nothing has happened. Then after that, they double bag the doll in a trash bag, put it at the bottom of the trash container. उसके ऊपर 4-5 बैग कचरे का रखते हैं. And the next day, the garbage people come. They manage to see that happen. It goes. The next day, the doll is in the backyard again. Still randomly saying, "Let it go, let it go." And then Spanish maybe, "Let it go."
¿Qué pasa? ¿Qué pasa?
¿Qué pasa?
Which is not
And
let it go.
that is not what's up. Now the children are like, "We are not doing this," and they don't like the doll that much anyway. Finally, what they do is they send it to a family friend. कि अपना प्रॉब्लम नहीं है, भूत है तो दोस्त के घर पे भेज दो. They send it over to Minnesota, and those people managed to tape the doll onto their front bumper of their truck And so far, the doll has not made its way back from Minnesota to Houston yet. And there is actually a Facebook update on the creepy doll. So if you just go creepy doll Houston, there is a Facebook update that's happening about this doll.
So she did let it
So
go eventually.
She did
wait,
let
so
it
the
go.
doll is still on the car of the family friend.
Yeah, so far
What is
it's
that
not come
logic?
back.
The family friends took the doll. Firstly, they don't find it weird that randomly their family friend is just sending them a fucking doll, which is creepy as fuck.
Doll रखो हाँ.
No,
और इन
it's
लोग
That's
ने
what
वो
weird
डॉल
people
लेके
हैं.
गाड़ी के सामने लेट इट गो
लगा
स्पेनिश में
दिया.
चल रहा है.
हाँ. वो
तो वो
हॉर्न
अभी
की
तक
तरह
बोल
ये
रही है, लेकिन लेट इट गो बोल रही है.
apparently. This is a Reddit story.
Bro, it's so weird that no story with a doll has not had something like this. मेरा पिक्चर याद है क्वेश्चन मार्क.
हाँ.
तो उसमें एक सीन है कि हम लोग के जो फॉरेस्ट के बीच में जो बंगलो में हम लोग रह रहे हैं, we start to go explore it, and while exploring we see a doll just there. So we sort of subverted that trope and we said, oh, doll. So we pretend to get scared with the doll. Then we make a little cover and we put the doll, and
Yeah.
we sing, do the rosary and all of that. ऐसे doll का हम लोग ने funeral किया, ऐसे कुछ joke वो करते हैं हम लोग. And then वो ही रात को जब हम लोग वापस जाते हैं घर पे और घर पे सीन्स हो रहे हैं, इन वन ऑफ द सीन्स वी सॉर्ट ऑफ गो बैक, ऐसे लाइट आती है चालू और उधर वो डॉल पड़ी हुई है. 11 साल पहले सेम सीन. डॉल हुआ अगर वो तेरा घोस्ट स्टोरी है तो उसको दफनाने की कोशिश करेगा, फेंकने की कोशिश करेगा, कट तो तेरे
The
घर पे
doll just
आएगी
shows
ही
up.
डॉल. डॉल आएगी.
Meaning, why
Chances ही
doesn't this happen with mobile phones?
है. Yeah.
Yeah.
Why have I lost so many?
गिर
Why
गया.
can't it just show up?
Screen टूटा
Seriously.
लेकिन next morning
because
मेरा फोन
dolls
वापस
have
ठीक हो गया था.
because dolls have no value.
Correct.
What?
No,
The
no, as in,
dolls have no value as
I-
opposed to a mobile phone, which is really important at that point. So of course it will
Yeah.
not show up.
like it's like those things that you try to you get it as a gift, then you re-gift it, and then after a few months of circulation, it gets re-gifted back to you.
What is this? A pack of dry fruits on Diwali?
Exactly that. No, but like something. So one is dolls. The second is creepy children's nursery rhymes.
Yeah. Ting,
And those-
ting, 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 ting. You know those old school,
Yeah,
like
those
they would have the
ballerina,
bride and the
those
groom.
ones.
Yeah,
Little music
ballerina.
boxes.
It's
Yeah,
also
music
those
boxes.
ones where it's also those ones, yeah, music box types where they're just like, you play it and then it just runs in the background with one ting 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 ting.
Here's another
Uh,
thing, right? In a horror film, if children are ever drawing anything, it's going to be the most hideous, scary.
Yeah, yeah.
Just one. It's the family getting killed
Getting
by
dead.
just.
What is this, beta? This is my mommy.
Yeah.
This is why are their heads
Yeah,
missing?
yeah,
Because they
yeah.
don't have their head.
Yeah. Yeah. Who's this person that you have drawn next to the family? Oh,
This
that's my
Varun
imagination.
Varun has disappeared, like a doll.
Yeah. अभी आ जाएगा वो.
Baba, just
All dolls come back.
Oh.
Oh, he's got his. बस सुनाई नहीं दे रहा है.
Yeah, it's. Are you on mute? Thakur?
No, he set it for
Okay, so-
he set it for
No,
audio.
can you hear?
Now
हाँ
he
अभी आ रहा है.
That's the
He
one.
was on mute. नहीं इतना
Okay.
नहीं आ रहा है.
You have to have give us a lot of explanation about this. What the fuck?
अरे होता गिफ्ट में देते हैं पब्लिक यार.
I have 2 or 3 music boxes.
This I got from Cologne. So the promoter they actually gave me Cologne from Cologne, and apparently this is really popular and native to Cologne. तो इसे दबाएगा ना तो ऐसा आवाज आता है.
तो ऐसा ऐसा बगल में लगा.
या उसको मालूम था
इससे
कि हम
cologne
लोग
नहीं
घोस्ट
निकलता.
स्टोरीज एपिसोड करने वाले हैं और this will add to
Oh
it.
my lord. Yeah, that's exactly correct. That's the
And it's
vibe.
playing ode to, and it's always an antithetical song. It's always ode to joy or something that's supposed to be very positive.
For release.
The for release is still, dum, 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 dum. It's still sad. Like, ode to joy is this happy Christmas song.
Kautuk,
Okay.
एक और है स्टोरी.
Yes. I have 2 more.
Of course.
Okay.
मेरे पास भी एक और है. वो थोड़ा सा लंबा है.
Okay. All right. Okay, so the next one, it in fact has a little bit of connection to what Aadar just told us, which is that it is linked to movies. Now, this is a thing that you have seen in a bunch of movies, and I'll tell you what this is. Okay, it's an urban legend. Now, here's how the urban legend starts. Okay, so there's a young couple who live in a house that's in this isolated part of town. Okay, it's right next to the woods and it's a little bit cut off from everyone else. Now, on this one particular night, this young couple wanted to go out, but they have two very young children. So, what they do is they get a babysitter. Now, this babysitter comes in and the parents head out for the night. Now, the babysitter tucks the kids into sleep. The both of them are extremely content. She's happy. She goes down. She switches on the television and she's watching TV. Now, as she's watching TV, it's a very regular night. And suddenly, the phone rings. So she gets up, she picks up the phone, and she says hello. But no one responds. She can just hear this heavy breathing. It's coming from the other line. She keeps saying hello. No one answers. She keeps the phone, goes back to watching television. A little while later, the phone rings again. She picks it up. She says hello. And this time, she can hear a person. This man says, "Go check on the kids."
Oh, fuck.
Okay. She says, "Who is this?" He says nothing else. Keeps the phone. She's unsettled. She's very, very freaked out. But she thinks that it's just a prank call. That maybe her friends who she's told about this babysitting gig, maybe they've called. So she forgets about it, goes back, watches television. But this time her mind can't focus on what's happening on television. And then the phone rings again. Now she gets up slowly. She can hear every ring coming from this phone. She picks up the receiver. She says, "Hello." Her voice is trembling. And then from the other side, she hears laughter. It's this hysterical laughter. And then the person just says, "Go check on the kids." She drops the receiver, right? And she looks at the staircase that is leading up to where the kids are. And it's looking extremely dark and ominous. Okay, she doesn't feel like she wants to go up. She's convinced that this is a horrible prank if it is one, but most likely it's not. So she picks up the phone and calls the police. And she says, "I've been getting these prank calls. I don't know what to do." The cops say, "Okay, the next time you get this call, just try to keep this person on the line. We'll try to trace it." So she keeps the phone and she's almost heading back to the television when the person calls again. She picks it up and again the person's hysterically just laughing. And then he says, "Go check on the kids." She tries to engage him in conversation, but he immediately cuts the call. And then as soon as the call has ended, the phone rings again. She picks it up and the police operator says, "Get out of the house now." She runs out of the house and she says the police are arriving. She runs to the police and the police explain to her the call was coming from inside the house. The police barge into the house and they find that upstairs, where the kids were sleeping, there's a man brandishing a kitchen knife. And he had already murdered the kids. And he was now getting her to come up.
Fuck.
So this is an urban legend. It's there in a bunch of movies. This kind of like
Bro, Scream. Scream had this exact same opening.
Yeah.
Sidhi.
Yeah.
You like horror movies.
Yeah.
And then she looks at the phone and the numbers is from the house where she actually is at that time.
Yeah. So basically this is an urban legend that came from a real case. Okay, so there was a 15-year-old schoolgirl called Janet Chrisman, and she had been called to go for a babysitting gig. And she goes to this house, and so on this particular night, Janet had a friend, and both of them had been called to two different houses. Now, her friend would later tell the police and reporters and stuff, ki it did feel like a very ominous night. Okay, now maybe this is in retrospect, or maybe there was something about it, but this friend of hers also felt like there was something off about this night. Now, what would happen is that the couple who had engaged this girl, um, the husband had tried calling the house in the interim, and he had found the line busy. So when they had got back home, they opened the door and they found that the phone line was busy because the phone was off the hook and it was lying on the floor. The receiver was lying on the floor, and next to it was Janet's body. So she had been killed. And the reason this urban legend came about was because when the police investigated the crime scene, the one thing that they could determine for sure was that there was no sign of forced entry. So either the person was someone that she most likely knew and therefore had opened the door for, or the person was already in the house. So those are the two possibilities. So that's where the urban legend basically comes from.
Nuts.
Yeah.
I had this story which was actually, it's a fourth hand story.
हाँ,
ओके, तो
real?
हाँ हाँ ऐसे बोल रहा है मेरे को, मेरे दोस्त ने बताया, विच इज अ स्टोरी अबाउट हिज ब्रदर इन लॉज अंकल. तो गो फिगर.
हाँ.
ठीक है, बट इट्स बेस्ड ऑफ ऑफ दिस स्मॉल विलेज इन तमिलनाडु. And this guy's uncle was a doctor there in the village. Now again, everybody in the village, any small problem, anything they needed, they would always come to him, and he was always the most helpful and will go out of his way to take care of people. Now he moves to another village with his mother, who's really old, and he's moved into his new village, and for some reason he feels something off on the first day itself. You know, we just feel like it's a bad day, like you're not liking the vibe. It could be anything, like maybe your breakfast was bad, or you woke up on the wrong side of the bed, you haven't completed your sleep, whatever. But there was something that was eating inside of him the first day he entered. Over the next few weeks it got okay, he was fine. And one night, I think after he shut his clinic and everything, he's gone back home, and it's a rainy night, not a thunder happening. And suddenly, because it's a small village, it's obviously not really like super well lit or anything, so it's dark, it's thundering, it's raining. And there is you can hear some, like somebody banging, some not banging, but you can hear almost like a rock hitting the door a couple of times. And it doesn't happen once, twice, it happens multiple times. So he doesn't wake up. His mom, who's really old, she wakes up, and she can hear the window going cart with something hitting. So she gets scared. And instead of waking him up, she decides to go see what is this sound. And she happens to open the window slightly, and now from their house at a slight distance there's a fence, and behind the fence there's a man. She sees a man who's yelling out, and in Tamil he's asking for the doctor to come and save his wife. And he's crying and he's begging and he's pleading. And so she obviously feels that this is a little off, it's so late at night. So to not disturb her son, she yells out and says that he's resting now, please come in the morning, he can't come. Because she is trying to yell, then this doctor finally wakes up and he's like, "What happened, mom?" And she's like, there is some guy, he's yelling, he's been throwing stones at the window, he's far off, and there's like water, there's a full, like it's a flood almost, right? Like he's calling, he's apparently his wife is pregnant, and he really needs your help because he thinks she's going to die. So I told him that to come in the morning and all, that you're not free. And he obviously doesn't want to go, but like because he is such a, like he wants to help people, he can't sort of help himself but say, you know what, fuck it, I'm going to go help. Because if he's come out in this fucking pouring rain at this hour of the night, and he's begging for his wife life. I have to go. So he takes his stuff and he's trying to see, but because it's really dark, there's barely any light, he can't see, but he can see like the figure of a man. So he gets out, it's raining, opens his umbrella, starts walking towards the man. As he's walking, the man keeps running away, yelling, saying, "Come fast, come fast, come fast." He doesn't wait for the doctor. Right? He's at a distance. He's just saying, come fast, please, doctor, please come fast. She's going to die. I need you to hurry, please, doctor, please." So he tries to run as fast as he can in whatever flood there is, right? Comes to him at one point of time, this man takes a right. Now this doctor anyway can't see properly, can't see the man. He's asking the man to stop, and he's turning a right towards a graveyard. So obviously doctor is like a little uh, shaken up, saying, "Why the hell is he going towards the graveyard?" So the doctor stops, yells, saying, "Why are you going towards the graveyard?" He's like, "I stay right behind. So the fastest way to get is to cut across this graveyard and we'll be there. Otherwise, you have to go all the way around and it's flooded everywhere." Now, obviously, against his own will, and yeah, he knows something is off, but he can't take the risk of what if this person is genuine and his wife is actually dying. So against better reason, he follows this man. As he's going, he's really trying to see this man's face. He's asking this man, "What's your name? Can you wait? Why don't you walk with me?" And this man keeps running, keeps saying, "No, just come, just come, just come, doctor, please come." He's tried very hard to see this dude's face and he can't see a face. And he doesn't want to admit it, but he's almost seeing literally like clothes, sort of just walking. He's not able to see. Everything is too dark, it's too hazy. So at this point in time, there's one small light through which these guys are going to cross. And even while doing that, the doctor couldn't see this dude's face. So that's the point. He just stops. And the guy keeps running forward, calling him again. Doctor's like, "No, no, I've forgotten something. At my house, it's really important medical equipment. I'm going to need it." He's like, "No, it's fine. Just come. Right now, she just needs a doctor. She doesn't need anything. It's just come, just come, just come." The doctor's like, "No, I have to go." And he's like, "No, you will not come back." He's like, "I promise, here's my medical kit. I'm keeping it here for you. So I will come back for it. I'm going to quickly go to the house, get that, and I'm going to come back. I promise." The guy starts crying, turns around and starts walking really fast towards the doctor. At this point, doctor's like, "Fuck it." He throws the thing and he runs for his fucking life. He's running in almost like little less than knee-high water. So he falls, he gets up, he turns around, he still can't see this dude's face, but he sees this thing approaching. He runs for his life, somehow manages to reach home, bang the door, still waiting for his mom, who's really old, to open the door. Mom somehow wakes up, opens the door. He shuts the door behind her, takes her to the side, and they're just against a wall staring at this door, thinking it's going to be broken down at any point of time, and this shadowy figure, whatever this person is going to come in. And mom is obviously petrified. They don't know what to do. They're scared, shivering, keep looking at the door. Eventually, time passes and they pass out, right? Because how long can you possibly stay awake? Next morning, he wakes up and he feels like he's woke, like his entire body feels off. He's mentally just feeling extremely like sad and he doesn't know what is happening to him. And he feels that what he witnessed last night was maybe a dream. He's not too sure whether this actually happened or was this a dream. Next day, he's going about his work and the local cooperator sort of comes in and, they do like a sitting with the people and, ask them what improvements are needed for this specific area and all of that. So the doctor was there for this sort of almost joint public meeting, and he tells the councillor that, "I think we need more street lights because there's literally one light every half a kilometer. Like it's really tough and it's scary at night. People need to commute, this, that. So it's better for everybody's safety if they have more light." And of all the suggestions, suddenly this suggestion comes in. So the mayor looks at him. He's like, "Why, doctor? Did anything specific happen?" So he ends up telling the mayor that, last night there was a man, he came to the house, he said his wife was dying, he really needed my help, that she was pregnant, and he got me through here and I couldn't see his face. I wish there was more light, I would have been able to see him, and then later I just felt off, so I came back. So the mayor's like, "Doctor, will you do me a favor? Once you're done with your work today and you shut your clinic, will you just come over? I need to talk to you." So doctor goes to his clinic. He's just recounting last night. He's still shitting bricks. He's like, I don't know what this thing is, what happened last night, and why is that mayor calling me? Not mayor, the councillor calling me to his office. So clearly there is something more to this. He's not able to focus at work. He shuts his clinic early, goes to the counselor. He's like, tell me what happened. So the counselor shows him like three doctors ka file. So he looks at the file and his first thought is that, oh, maybe it wasn't about this light or the increasing the street lights. Maybe it's about expanding and getting more clinics and, maybe a small hospital. And these are the prospective doctors that they're looking at. So he starts looking and then he looks up. He's like, who are these guys? He's like, these were the previous three doctors who died under mysterious circumstances. All three of them died under mysterious circumstances. And when the police came to ask or whatever, each and every one of them said a man came in at night, yelling, screaming, begging for the doctor to come save his wife. And the doctors never came back from any of this. So you are lucky that you are actually here sitting in front of me to be able to say this story. So yeah.
Fuck. Creepy.
Fuck.
Also, most unbelievable part was counselor actually asking for suggestions to improve the place.
And whoever raised the point and said we need more streetlights, that person was not found again.
Yeah.
They died under mysterious circumstances.
Also,
When
like
they gave suggestions to corporator.
the other thing should have been, like the doctor just asking the guy as he's running forward, Doctor, आओ जल्दी आओ. आपके पास insurance है? कौन सा mediclaim?
Yeah, but freaky, and it's freaky in a weird way, not because something happened, but because something could have happened. That I love those kind of stories. One is कि हाँ वो ऐसा क्या फिर उसका देखो फिर वो मर गया क्योंकि हुआ नहीं, और एक दूसरा है जो मरा नहीं है लेकिन he has seen till the last moment of what could have possibly been his death, and now he has to recount that every single day.
It's not horror, it's suspense that kills you.
Yeah. The thing is, the could have been is always worse, right? The could have been is because of what could have happened and how I have got butch out.
Yeah.
So that is super important.
No, and also like this doctor is never doing house visits again.
I think he stopped doctory also. He is now he's a comedian in Bombay.
But this is the fear of like the fear of the unknown, right? Is essentially what it's playing on, and the unknown when it's in a professional capacity is even more scary.
Yeah.
It's so weird. Like
I have a friend who's a physiotherapist, right? Now, because she's a physiotherapist, she has to go to people's houses for the physiotherapy sometimes because it's that bad a situation, right? And the thing is that she's always a little bit on edge because
you're going to someone's house. Yeah.
You're going to someone's house and you don't know who they are, right? And what could happen. So, it's the same thing, which is why like any profession that has this kind of like traveling scene, right? So you hear a lot of truck driver horror stories. You hear a lot of like that kind of stuff.
Because of the candle, there's this weird shadow that is constantly coming behind me, which is like really fucking around. Mera thoda gaan pad raha. Because
it really
supposed to be alone in the house right now.
Dude,
so don't go and try and help his dying wife because there's no wife and he is not alive.
It looked like it's a shadow of someone sitting, like it's just a shadowy figure behind you. It's a very odd thing.
Yeah.
अरे तेरा कपड़ा फटा हुआ है क्या?
नहीं, कपड़ा ठीक है फिलहाल.
फोन आएगा तो उठा.
Discolored, खत्म.
चल कौतुक तेरा बता.
नहीं this I'm doing I'll do mine
sorry.
So this is a story from Melbourne, Australia. There's this dude who had just moved into a new apartment, and he one day went to he went to one of the passages, and this is a Reddit story. Now everything is fine. He's excited about moving into a new house. He's just got his new first job, and he's kind of happy about being in a house. like a nice bigger apartment, kind of like one of those old houses. But it's a home where he's got the ground floor, the first floor. The attic is sealed off by the landlord. So there's no access for the tenant to go to the attic. Now, one day he he's back home and like he's had a hard day at work and he's sleeping peacefully. Suddenly at about 2 o'clock or 2:30 at night, he hears a sound like of something heavy falling, really heavy. So he goes to check it out. And there is a passageway between the rooms और उधर एक लकड़े का टुकड़ा गिरा हुआ. And it's not a normal लकड़े का टुकड़ा. It's a pretty thick लकड़े का टुकड़ा. And it's broken in two pieces. And it's on the floor. And he looks up, that plank was covering a hole that leads to the attic. So it was clearly used to block off the hole in the attic. And the way the block was broken, it looked like something from upstairs has broken it, because it broke like this. And it cannot be broken by a normal individual. Like it's like Bruce Lee level, you have to break that. Like, so he calls his landlord and he's like, this block is broken, you know. And the landlord goes, oh, it's okay. It's happened with the previous tenants also. And he asks, is there somebody upstairs? And she's like, no, there is nobody who lives upstairs. But this has happened before. He sent the photos to the landlord. She's like, it's okay, don't worry. And she gets it replaced the next day. Now he's creeped out that this happened before. And the landlord is so nonchalant about it. A month later, he wakes up again at 4 o'clock. And his body is completely covered in goosebumps. It's like somebody had been rubbing their hands all over his body. And then he hears a dragging sound in the attic, like someone is dragging a sack of potatoes. And now this guy's freaked out. This guy goes back to the passageway, and that block is again, the new one is also broken in the same place, lying on the ground. And from the hole, he can hear the sound of children laughing and going, now it's your turn. Now it's your turn. तो इसका फट गया. उससे सारा लाइट्स ऑन कर दिया घर का, and now he's sitting there, he's trying to switch the TV on, and वो TV देख रहा है बैठ के. And then he's got a dog, and the dog usually is quite quiet in the night. The dog suddenly starts squawking like something is strangling the dog. So he goes to find the dog and he realizes the dog is screaming. This guy freaks out, runs out of the house, gets his car keys and spends the rest of the night in his car. और कुत्ता छोड़ दिया इसने वहां. He goes back inside, and this is daytime. People are walking their dogs. सुबह लोग jogging पे निकल रहे. That's when he decided to go back inside the house. He goes in the house. He goes to the kitchen, and वहां पे देखता है उसका कुत्ता is not in the cage. Goes to the toilet, and the dog is in a half-filled bathtub, almost drowned, and like so tired that like the dog has been fighting for his life for hours. He calls the landlord. She doesn't answer, so he writes a mail saying whatever happened in like short details, blah blah blah. The landlord sends him a message, call me right now. So he calls her and she goes, oh, you heard the whispering too. And after that, this idiot decided to live in the house for another 18 months till his lease expired. And on a couple of occasions, and he kept his dog next to his bed. वो कुत्ते को भी cage में नहीं रखता. He keeps the dog next to him because the dog will start barking first. And he still heard the whispering on 2 occasions. And the board covering the hole was broken. 18 months later, he moved out. He started living somewhere else. And he's been getting calls from his landlord asking that the current tenants really want to get in touch with him to ask him something. And he's not been answering.
Dude, that is the most relatable part. Ki again, if you get a good deal on a house, whispering is okay, chalega.
Yeah. 18 महीना फिर भी रहा और कुत्ते को छोड़ के चला गया. That's where I was like in disbelief. कुत्ते को छोड़ दिया इसने केज में.
Yeah.
Like the dog can't even run away to protect itself. And from the cage, the dog ended up in the bathtub.
Yeah. Meaning,
That's
कितना डिपॉजिट दिया रहेगा dude?
मैं वही बोल रहा था कि
ऑस्ट्रेलिया।
वो बोला, उसने फोन करके बोला है कि एटिक में खड्डा है. बोला हाँ ठीक है ना, लेकिन हमने ब्रोकरेज थोड़ी लिया है. हाँ एक्चुअली चलेगा.
चलेगा.
या फिर ये उन लोग का प्लॉ है कि ऊपर उन लोग बच्चों का एक रिकॉर्डिंग रखते हैं, हमेशा ये तोड़ते रहते हैं ताकि पब्लिक लीज के पहले ही भाग जाए और एंड देन यू डोंट नो देम एनी मनी. तो तू ऐसे ही करते जा रहा है और ये एक मस्त रियल एस्टेट स्कैम चल रहा है.
So this sounds
मेलबर्न
like,
में.
This is the version that is truly horrific.
yeah. Yeah. Okay. So should I tell you this last story?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I
And-
want to sleep at some point.
Yes. And I genuinely have to give a content warning for this. This story has like a lot of gore. So in case you are a person who does not like those kind of stories, now would be a good time to check out.
And Kautuk is going to do a dramatic reading of Saw 6.
It is
You want to play a game?
it is worse. It is truly worse. And funnily enough, it also starts, this story kind of begins with a movie. So okay, so that is the content warning for sure. If you are not comfortable with body horror or any of that stuff, please leave now. Okay. So here's where the thing starts. Okay, so there was a movie and a book that came out. The book first, which was called Hannibal. Okay, Hannibal, the book written by Thomas Harris, on which Silence of the Lambs and then later Hannibal was filmed. Right now, in the movie Hannibal and the book, there is a character called Mason Verger. Okay, in the movie, he was played by Gary Oldman.
Yeah.
And for those of you who've not seen it, it's one of the most creepy characters in cinema ever. So Mason Verger's backstory was this, that he was a awful human being, a pedophile who had been going to Hannibal Lecter as a patient, and eventually Hannibal Lecter had convinced him to take drugs, a cocktail of drugs, and then he had suggested to him that he should cut his own face open with a shard of a mirror and feed it to his dogs. And in that state, Mason Verger had complied. Now, when this thing came out, there was one particular police officer who saw the movie and read the book, and he was extremely surprised because he realized that this particular backstory of this character was based completely on a real case, a case that he had written about in a book. So here's what the case was. And this case is a perfect demonstration of the fact that the real horrors exist already in this world without the help of anything supernatural. So here's what happens. The story is a story of a man called Michael. Now, on this particular night, Michael takes PCP. Okay, it's a drug. It's called angel dust as well.
Yeah.
Now, this drug is a hallucinogenic drug. Okay, it has this tendency of making you hallucinate things, experience extreme amounts of joy, euphoric joy, but it also makes you
Massive crash.
yeah, and it also kind of like it does this thing where it detaches you from reality and it detaches you from yourself. So, and the other thing about this drug is that it's an anesthetic, so you don't feel pain. Now, what happens is that Michael's taken a lot of PCP and he's at a woman's house. Now, at this woman's house, after taking PCP, he starts taking off his clothes. Okay. And the woman gets very alarmed because he's taken off his clothes and now he's also talking in gibberish, like he's talking nonsense. Okay. So she's alarmed by this behavior and she immediately goes to a neighbor and she calls the neighbor for help. The neighbor is able to just fend off Michael and tells him to go home.
Back off. Huh?
Right. So Michael is sent home. Now, when Michael gets home, his night doesn't end. He takes even more PCP. Okay. At this point, he is hallucinating wildly. Okay. And he's completely detached from, like, he can't register that his body belongs to him. Okay. Now, in this frenzy, okay, here's what he does. He breaks a glass and he takes this glass shard. Okay. And for some mysterious reason, he sits down in a leather chair and he starts peeling off his own face. Okay, he slices off his nose, he starts ripping the skin off his face. Okay, and he takes these chunks down to the basement where he's kept his dogs and he feeds the dogs his face, including an eyeball that he has pierced out of his skull. Right now, not just that, he lays down in this basement, and all of this was reconstructed because the cops were able to see the trail of blood and the pools of blood where he lay. Right. So he lays in the basement for some time and eventually something starts registering in him that he's coming back to reality and he realizes he needs to call for help. So he calls emergency medical services and they arrive and they take him to the hospital and he's in a bad shape. The hospital are so unnerved seeing this because from the neck down, he's a normal human being. From the neck up is just a red, bloodied skull. So they're so horrified by this that they immediately call the cops. The cops rush to the hospital, they see him, and the cops are putting, gauze on this man's face, trying to save as much as they can. And the cops ask him what happened, and he is able to say, first he says the dogs did it, and eventually he says that someone told me to peel off my face. And after that, he says the last thing. He says that suddenly, out of the blue, he says, I did it to myself as an offering to Big Bird. No one knows what this is. No one knows who he's referring to. It's probably something he hallucinated. Now, the cops are called in. They retrace his steps and they reconstruct this night and they're able to piece a lot of it together. And finally, they head back to the hospital and they take photographs, everything. Now, there is wire gauze all over this man's face, but the cops instruct the medical team to just let his mouth be open because they want to question him. And a cop goes near his ear and he says, can you tell us anything more? There's a little bit of silence, and then he just starts shouting, ay, 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 ay. His jaw is just moving up and down like a mechanical box. Right. So at the end, what they realized was that the PCP had made him do all of this, but it had also permanently damaged his brain. So he never came back from that. He was made a ward of the state and he's kept away from everybody else because also they had to they had to do a lot of reconstructive surgery to piece whatever they could back of his face. This is a real case. Now, the writer of this book, he wrote to Thomas Harris saying that, hey, I saw your book and your movie, and I just want to say that this is a real case taken from this handbook. This is not to say that I'm taking you to court, but could you just mention this book in your bibliography, in your sort of like further reading? And Thomas Harris said, absolutely, I will mention this book because it was a story taken exactly from here. And that's the story of Michael.
Wow.
A man who fed his face to his dogs.
Moral of the story: don't do PCP.
Yeah. Damn. Fucking hell.
बाबा तू म्यूट पे.
Sorry, moral of the story is don't cut your own face.
First,
Yeah, but if he
That also.
hadn't done PCP, he wouldn't be doing
Yeah.
it, na.
It's
He
not
wouldn't
a
be in
good
a state
idea.
to.
Yeah.
Kautuk, why you had to take a body horror? I was okay, you know, with most of it till you did that I bastard.
but it's
Full
all
full
true. It's all true.
mood में क्या भावतुक ने.
It's
अब
all
वो लाइट के साथ तो और आ
Yeah,
रहा था.
yeah.
Nice.
So for some reason, I found a monkey
No,
horror
no.
story.
No, I'm
I don't
cutting
know
this
if that has
podcast.
to be
I'm
shared.
But
cutting
that's
it.
good, na. Baba,
It's a
it'll
short
like
one. Yeah.
it'll help you digest it.
I
It's
don't
like
want to
a
digest.
aperitif. Bol.
It's
It will be
it's
some
Aadar.
horror fact. That's
Okay.
the problem.
No, it's not a fact. It's not a fact. It's actually a very famous. This story is about Mr. White. It begins with Mr. White sitting and playing chess with his son. And this is in like 1902 types, like really old. And his friend, the Sergeant General, comes in and says that he's been going to multiple trips to India. And he's got a monkey's paw.
Mhm.
And the monkey paw grants 3 men 3 wishes.
Mm.
Now, the sergeant has used up all of his wishes, and another man who found it with him or was given the monkey paw has died. And he gets angry and throws it into the fireplace. But Mr. White goes and picks it up. Mr. White is like, no, I'm going to save this. The sergeant general wants him, but he's like, no, it's all bullshit. And then the father, son, and the wife, Mrs. White, Mr. White, and the son sit down and they're making fun of it. Like, let's ask for something small. तो वो लोग बोलते हैं 200 पाउंड चाहिए हम लोग को. तो 200 ग्रेटर ब्रिटिश पाउंड्स मांगते हैं और ये लोग सुबह सोने चले जाते हैं. सॉरी, रात को सोने जाते हैं और सुबह उठते हैं, कुछ नहीं, पैसा नहीं आया है घर पे. तो दे लाइक, दिस इज ऑल बुलशिट. The son goes to work. Mr. White goes through his daily activities, and then after a while, they get a call that the son has died in the factory that he used to work, and the company is going to give compensation of 200 pounds.
Oh.
The sergeant general meets them at the funeral and says that there was a fakir who gave him this monkey paw, and he said that no matter what fate catches up to you, you cannot cheat fate. Please don't do any more. And the father is like, yeah, I will get rid of it. I will destroy it. But Mrs. White is beside herself. She keeps crying. She says, please, you have 2 more wishes. Ask for our son back. Ask for our son back. And the father, despite everything, says, yeah, theek hai. I'll wish for him back. So he holds the paw and wishes for his son back. And they go to sleep. After about an hour or something, there is a knock on the door. And he realizes, oh yeah, the cemetery is about 2 miles away. It must have taken a little while for the son to walk. It must have taken about that much time to walk and come here. And then knocking keeps getting louder. And the father is scared about this. It's like, this is not going to be good. And the wife is rushing down and he's fighting his wife from opening the door. And the knocking is still getting louder and louder and louder. And the wife, before she opens that last latch of the door, Mr. White makes his last wish. She opens the door and there's nothing there. Just a street light. His last wish was for his son to go away.
Man, I love these, those genie gives 3 wishes wale. Because the moral of the story is always कुछ पाने के लिए कुछ खोना पड़ता है. Like that's the moral of the story.
Yeah.
Always.
This is a horror short story by W. W. Jacobs, published in 1902, and it's been made into
It's called The
multiple
Monkey's Paw, no?
movies. Yeah, The Monkey's Paw, 1933, 2013. It was made into another movie.
It's called Monkey's Paw.
1940.
The movie also is called Monkey's Paw.
Yeah, The Monkey's Paw, 1948, 1923. It's been made into multiple movie
And
adaptations.
later they made it into a whiskey also.
Oh, that's
Hey,
the monkey
whoa.
shoulder.
Monkey shoulder.
That shoulder. Every part
But
of the monkey
after
is
they
used. guys.
sacrificed 47, it became monkey 47.
क्या बाबा, for somebody who doesn't drink, तू एकदम दबादब अल्कोहल ब्रांड के नाम
अरे
ले
पूरा
रहा है.
पॉडकास्ट कुछ 4 चीज बोला है मैं, 4 सेंटेंस. ठीक है.
I'm surprised you didn't say Budweiser.
On that note.
On that note, that's the end of this episode of the Internet Set. So we were telling ghost stories after almost like weeks of you guys asking for it. So hope the new year began well for you, and hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Please hit the bell icon so you know when the episode has gone up. And yeah, happy new year once again, 2023. Thank you for being with us all through 2022 and many more years together. And yeah, guys, anything else you want to say? Anything you want to promote on today, which is 20th December, about what will happen on 3rd of Jan?
Yeah, just
Oh,
make your resolutions in May because Jan wale chalte nahi.
चलते नहीं.
Make your resolutions definitely.
और जिम जाओ, मैं जाने वाला हूँ.
yeah, go to the gym is very important, guys. Always go to the gym.
चल सही है.
Go to
बाबा
the gym.
जाते
Then
वक्त एक
go
बोल
to
दे
the
कुछ
gym.
घोस्ट फैक्ट कुछ है तेरे पास?
Ghost fact
घोस्ट फैक्ट
जो
ये है कि
मेरे-
तू आज सोने जाएगा और तेरे
हाँ.
नहीं
रूम
ghost
में
fact-
कोई होने वाला है.
ghost fact ये है कि जो मैंने स्क्रीन पे देखा था वो अब नहीं है.
Well done, Baba.
पर आदर के पीछे एक्चुअली एक शैडो लग रहा है.
Yeah, no, it's this.
And that
it's
looks
been there
like
for
a
while.
bigger Aadar with more hair coming. वैसे लग रहा है.
Also,
Okay,
Dude,
guys.
Varun
suddenly,
Aadar. Varun
I
Aadar.
can't tell you. My
God.
one of my things is stopped working, and it's making weird sounds right now. Just
what-
rando weird sounds.
I'm just whispering so Baba doesn't hear it, but we'll just call him randomly at some point in the night. Okay.
Yes.
At a time he won't we won't tell him exactly when, but some point.
Tell him कि बड़वे edit time पे करके वीडियो भेज.
एयरप्लेन मोड.
Oh.
बाय.
अरे थॉट्स के एयरप्लेन मोड नहीं होते बाबा. थॉट्स में तो हम आएंगे.
तो अगर एयरप्लेन मोड पे डाला और फिर भी रिंग हुआ
तो गार्ड
तो वाईफाई चेक करेगा मैं.
Your feet are actually monkey's
तू
paws.
तू 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 सब ट्राई कर अपने साइंटिफिक एक्सप्लेनेशन ये चीज के लिए बाबा. लेकिन व्हाट यू कांट एक्सप्लेन, यू कांट एक्सप्लेन.
No, I
Go
can't.
check on the edit, Baba.
That's funny.
Yeah. Guys,
Okay,
please
which
let me
reminds
know
me-
if people watching the podcast, let me know अगर मेरे पीछे कुछ actually था.
Yeah, and
Okay,
please put timestamp so that we also.
Yeah, please put timestamp if there was something behind me.
Okay, on that note, goodbye.